Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second India-ASEAN Youth Conference of 2024 in partnership with the Geostrata and the Foreign Policy Talks. The conference will promote dialogue between India and ASEAN youth while highlighting several key issues related to geopolitical and economic importance of the regions. In the current period, India and the ASEAN have arrived at the global stage with renewed importance and significance. Therefore, there is a need to increase youth engagement on questions of global significance. Without much ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Harsh Suri, the founder of the Geostrata, to deliver his opening remarks.
Hi Anirban and hi everyone today, and thank you so much for giving this platform. Today is not about Geostrata or foreign policy talks, but today is mainly about India and the ASEAN countries coming together, and especially youth, the young leaders who are basically going to take forward the relationship between the two blocks going forward. And that's why India ASEAN Youth Conference has always been a very special endeavor. And I really thank Noto for being a very instrumental partner in getting this done from the ASEAN side. Uh, Last year, we came up together, Geostrata and foreign policy talks, and we thought that something like this should be happening. And while there were a lot of things that we didn't know about each other, but somehow we pulled it off last year. And the resilience of this particular conference is shown in its second edition. So right now we have its second edition today, and we are glad to have all the delegates from ASEAN and India present here today. And I know one of the best parts about India ASEAN conferences that we have people from various countries, not just India or Indonesia or Singapore, but 10 different countries in the ASEAN bloc. So that is something that makes it very wide, makes it very special for us. We get to know a lot of things from you people. And I'm really glad that we are joined here today by people from across the ASEAN field and India and various regions of India also. Without taking any further time, I would like to give the platform to Noto to go further and talk about how we have come up till here.
All right, thank you so much, Harsh, and good afternoon, namaste. My name is Noto, founder of Foreign Policy Talks, and special greetings to Excellency Anup Mudgal. It's nice meeting you, and it's good to see also colleagues and friends from the Geostrata. It's very pleasant for us to work together with you again for this second India-ASEAN Youth Conference. Last year was quite intense. I still remember many important topics were discussed last year, and now we have different faces this year, all young and aspiring leaders of ASEAN and India come together to discuss about a very important topic on Saturday. So it's quite pleased to see that you dedicated your time, your energy for this youth conference. I'd like to start by saying this. So last year, I was heavily involved in Indonesia's ASEAN chairmanship, and I just want to give this as a context, especially for our ASEAN delegations, to really look into how important these conversations to have with our Indian friends, right? I have three takeaways that I want to share. The first takeaway is that ASEAN, I think, is not really aware of its own potential, and particularly if we are more connected, whether it's physically, whether it's digitally, whether it's economically, right, or even among its people. So a platform that gathers all ASEAN countries together and then talk about many important or most pressing issues with the counterpart like India is very critical for ourselves. Right? It's not only about that we will understand ourselves more, but also to understand our friends outside ASEAN. Right? That's my first point. Second is that ASEAN could potentially be the magnet of global growth, and that's not only like the claim from ourselves. We can see where, for example, within the Indo-Pacific conversation, many of all countries in the globe are having its concept, strategy, or framework to engage Southeast Asia, right? Look at Canada with their own strategy. Look at the US with the economic framework. And also, countries in the East or many other parts of the globe. One of the dialogue partners that is very good in playing its diplomatic, how to say, muscles is India, right? So that's how we also need to understand or comprehend better on how we engage with Southeast Asia. So the interests of the all dialogue partners, right, worldwide cannot be taken for granted. We also need to understand as a Southeast Asian, as ASEAN, what should we do with India, right? So that's how we pick the topics today to answer that. My last point, I know I speak quite long. Uh, the discourse of the global South is so much happening today, right? We see India for years have been very active in playing its political and economic modalities to lead the global South. But of course, it's inevitable to include Southeast Asia in the global South partnership, right? It's no way that if you look at the map, the center of the global South is Southeast Asia, and you're not including Southeast Asia. I think that doesn't make sense. It's not meaning that we claim ourselves how important is Southeast Asia. No, I think we just want to show that our eagerness, our interest to be involved in the global South, not only conversation, but also global South partnership. And that's how we want to tell also to our Indian friends that we want to be part of this further global South cooperation. So that's why we pick also this topic in one of our sessions today. So that's the three takeaways that I want to share, just to trigger our ASEAN and Indian delegates to have a very productive and constructive conversations moving forward. So thank you so much, and thanks again for our distinguished guest, Mr. Anup Mudgal, and also our colleague, our friends, our partner, the Geostrata. Thank you.
So as we talk about the importance of India-ASEAN relations, we have members joining across India and the ASEAN countries. I'd like to welcome the former ambassador, His Excellency Anup Mudgal sir, to deliver his special remarks.
Thank you, Arnab and other colleagues. I thank both Geostrata and Foreign Policy Talks for inviting me to this conversation. Now, you have used a term that I will be delivering a keynote. So, my suggestion, are we still on? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
because I can only see myself and nobody else.
So you are spotlighted as a speaker.
Oh,
No, you can
I'm back. I'm back with the grid now. So I would not call my presentation as a keynote. It's a very heavy expression, keynote. You see, when you talk to youngsters like you people, it should better be a conversation, not really heavy expression like keynote. It's not a one-way traffic where I'm going to give you all the wisdom and you will be the recipients of that wisdom. I think the wisdom today, a large part of wisdom lies with the youth. And you are the custodians of that wisdom. So I, in fact, beyond what has been mentioned in my introduction, I really stay very closely engaged with the youth. It's my passion. I talk to youth of all ages. You won't believe. I go to even primary schools and talk to them. I go to the universities and talk to them. I go to the expert think tanks and I talk to them. I talk to the youth in cities. I talk to the youth in villages. I talk to the youth who create technology and talk to the youth who use technology. I talk to the youth who create jobs and I talk to the youth who are seeking jobs. In fact, I'm quite closely associated with the youth's dreams, their expectations, their aspirations. And much more than that, I am also aware of the anxiety they are facing because of the profound global transition and change that we are witnessing today. Now, youth, in fact, in themselves, if you look at youth represents transition for a society. It's from one generation to the other. But then, when we look at the environment in which this transition takes place, most of the time the environment remains fairly stable with minor changes here and there. The world which you face remains broadly stable, yes? But today, that world itself is changing, and changing very, very rapidly, very, very profoundly. Believe me, I'm an old man. I have seen many years, yes? And we have never seen such comprehensive transition taking place simultaneously. We have, as in fact in the introduction my colleague mentioned, we have the geopolitical transition taking place, which means the global pecking order is seeking readjustment. We are witnessing a very profound economic transition. We are looking at unprecedented technology transition. We are looking at social transition. And finally, we are looking at even the environmental transition. Because we have had environment changing with time, but today what we're looking at is unprecedented again, by way of global warming, which can have very, very profound impact. Now, when I talk to the youngsters like you in different places, they have both a great optimism about this change, but they also have very, very serious worries, fears, anxiety about this change. What this change means to them. You see, I can talk about India-ASEAN relationship for hours, but I think today I will concentrate on what kind of world the youth is looking at. And let's ask this question together. Are we being prepared for that change? Because the future belongs to you. And believe me, you are not the major factor which is causing the change. You should not be at the receiving end of that change, because the change is going to impact your lives. Yes, we are old people, in fact. And who is sitting on the steering wheel for this change? Old people like me. And who will be impacted? Young people like you. You are sitting in the back seat most of the time. I'm very happy that this dialogue is bringing you somewhat to the front seat. Yes, even if you will not control the entire steering, try to control at least a part of the steering and the direction in which the world is going and in which we are heading. Because it's going to be your world. Yes, when you are maybe 20 years from now, 30 years from now, I will not be there. Maybe I will not be there. But if you leave the steering in my hands alone, I would not be there even to answer why I made mistakes. Yes. So what are the questions? What are the questions and fears I see in the minds of youth? Now, they ask me questions about their preparedness for change. And for that, their main question always is our education system training us adequately and properly for those changes? Now, this comes to their mind because of the technology transition. You are all aware of the coming technologies by way of artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics. And I'm sure you are reading in newspapers and elsewhere that this technology can potentially replace human hands, and now is threatening even to replace human minds. Now, if the technology replaces human hands and human minds, in a large manner, obviously the question is, what shall we do? What the youngsters, the youth of today will do if most of the job that we are doing today as humans could be done by technology? In fact, I was amazed when somebody said, there is nothing that the humans can do and the computers cannot do better. Now that is a very, very serious statement. Therefore, we need to ask this question. Are we being prepared for that change? And if the technology is coming that way, what is the space which is left for humans? What shall we do? Can we stay ahead of the technology that is coming? Now, believe me, I deal with technology day in and day out. This is very, very different. You see, we have passed through various economic revolutions, as we call them. When we were transitioning out of agriculture, there was a huge space opening up in manufacturing and industry. As a result, the job losses in primary sector were taken or compensated by the secondary sector, which is manufacturing. And then we moved the next stage of our economic revolution. But then again, a new space was opening, entirely new space, services. So the job losses in manufacturing were compensated by services. But today, I'm not looking at any new space emerging which will be able to compensate those job losses or potential job losses. I think it's a serious issue. It's a serious issue for me, but it's a more serious issue for the youth. So please, you must sit in the front row and discuss this issue, where we are heading, and ask this question, what space shall be left for me? Yes, please ask these questions. Don't go into what is called some kind of philosophical debate. It is no more philosophy. It's reality. Yes. And then, of course, this is going to impact the youth socially, in fact. I'm sure all of you are one way or the other related to social media platforms. Now, social media platforms are literally bombarding you with information, and very, very minor and small part of that information is really relevant to your life. But they are occupying so much of your space, your mental space, that sometimes I fear that you probably are not getting peace of mind to sit and think about yourself. There are something called information bubbles, in fact. People are talking to, most of the time they're talking to themselves. Why? Because talking to people who think exactly like them. Because if you come across somebody who doesn't agree with you, you cancel that person out. I'm sure if you don't like my presentation, you will very easily cancel me out. So this cancellation business of disagreement is creating information bubbles, which means we are living in rooms which are completely pasted with mirrors, and we are talking to ourselves. As a result, socially, while we feel we are very well connected, or we are not very well connected, because we are not dealing with an argument which is different from our own argument. Now, please ask this question. Should we always be talking to ourselves? Then where is the dialogue, in fact? If we have to talk to ourselves or people who think like us, then it is not a dialogue. Basically, we are talking to ourselves. And this will, in a way, undermine the diversity, because the diversity only matters when you listen to a different viewpoint. When we don't listen to a different viewpoint, then diversity is no more a strength. But diversity, we all know, is the mother of creativity. So is this whole information bubbles, are they killing our creativity? Because if we don't encounter different viewpoints, our creativity will be impacted. Please ask these questions, because there is no point having such international conferences if at the end of the day, we only want to talk to people who speak like us, who think like us. And it doesn't serve the purpose. The youth needs to come together and needs to develop a new mindset that the difference of opinion should not divide us, but difference of opinion should strengthen us. Because instead of one idea, we will have many ideas and we will choose the best one. So I think this is another very, very important issue. And the third important issue which I would mention, I said the environmental transition. See, I'm sure you have heard the statement where global warming is being labeled as existential threat. If it is existential threat, you need to ask this question: how have we arrived at this existential threat? What were the causes? Who was responsible for those causes? What are the solutions, and who is preventing or delaying those solutions? We need to ask these questions. Yes. So, because I've been told that you want me to speak for about 12 minutes, and I'm looking at my watch. I've already done 10 minutes. I'm very happy that Geostrata and Foreign Policy Talk at least is trying to bring people together. Yes, trying to bring people together. And you should do more. Don't try to find people who support your ideas. Also find people who do not agree with your ideas. Bring them together. Who knows? Because the priority for the youth is to bring people together. And this takes me to my final point, that is the risk of conflict. Believe me, till about 10 years ago, whenever I went to a conference or a meeting like this, I used to say, oh, we are going to become a global village, which means we will basically converge because of globalization. Now today, instead of global village, we are talking about deglobalization. Now, that is a major risk in my view. Youth must stand up for convergence, stand up for cooperation, stand up for peace, stand up for sustainability, and stand up against violence and war. Because I have seen wars, they are extremely destructive. And they impact the youth the most. Because the old people in any case are at the end of their life. It's the young youth. You have your entire life before you. Never take a pledge. Never in your life stand with violence. Always oppose violence. Always oppose divisions. Yes, we have to come together. We have to stand united. And as in the introduction, somebody mentioned, India and ASEAN have a long history of living together, thinking together, or working together. Yes, I can take you back to the Kalinga period, something about 2,400 years ago. And from those days, the history tells us how India and Southeast Asia were connected socially, economically, culturally. So those issues I will leave maybe for another session. Maybe somebody will talk about that. I will stop here, and I would love to answer if you have any questions based on my background and my conversation I have given to you. I in addition to diplomatic issues, I work on sustainability issues very closely. And in India, ASEAN, I see sustainability at the front and center of the conversation. Yes. So if you're not sustainable, nothing will work. It may give you the impression that it's working, but believe me, it will not work. Right? So thank you very much for having patience to listen to me. I hope I made some sense. Yes. And I hope to stay in contact with you whenever in future there's an opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your special remarks and your keynote address. It has been it's been great to understand, especially when we talk about the history of India and ASEAN relations. It goes back to 2,400 years. With it dates back to the Kalinga period. By that sense in mind, I would like to request Mr. Felix to present the stream to address the address of Mr. Bernardino M. Vega, ASEAN Business Council back from Indonesia.
Greetings and good afternoon. Distinguished delegates from all over ASEAN and India. And first of all, I would like to acknowledge His Excellency, former Ambassador Anup K. Mudgal, His Excellency Mr. Harsh Suri, founder of Geostrata, and of course, my colleague Noto Suwanto, founder of Foreign Policy Talks. On behalf of ASEAN BAC Indonesia, I would like to congratulate Geostrata and Foreign Policy Talks for organizing such an important event and for raising the issue of the Global South and the important position of ASEAN and India in the midst of the rapid changes in the global economic order. To mark this occasion, please allow me to share some of my thoughts and observations as alternate chair of ASEAN Business Advisory Council during Indonesia's chairmanship last year, where we introduced the theme ASEAN Centrality, Innovating Towards a Greater Inclusivity. There are three takeaways that I observe from our region, and it also aligns with the agenda in the Global South and how both India and ASEAN can leverage this momentum. First, ASEAN really matters, not only because of its population, size, and geography, but also because of the economic potential of its people. It is vibrant, innovative, and resilient. But the same can be also said about the Global South. Although there's no clear definition, the Global South is about 125 countries with diverse economic, political, and social backgrounds. Our sheer size in demographic and economic terms warrants greater attention from the world. Second, ASEAN is a center or epicenter of global growth. That's also true. I have observed how many countries around the world are promoting their agenda to engage with us with various strategies and documents. And even in the midst of the dynamics in the Indo-Pacific, ASEAN is being put at the center with its strategic importance by Canada, the United States, Australia, Korea, and the United Kingdom, and so on. At the same time, we see the same thing happening in the Global South. Both the Global West and Global East are trying to win hearts and minds of the Global South, with one side espousing values and ideas, and the other providing infrastructure and direct funding that the Global South desperately needs. Their logic and rationale is simple. They recognize that the Global South will determine the new direction of the world. This brings me to my third and final point about ASEAN and the Global South. ASEAN should see more of its own region, and in many cases I have seen that we often give more attention and focus to external engagement in the expense of neglecting our own neighbors and the region as a whole. That is why we believe in promoting intra-ASEAN investment and in advancing what we have called the ASEAN Incorporated Agenda during our chairmanship year. Similarly, the Global South should not repeat the same mistakes of choosing between sides, between values and interests, between democracies and autocracies, or even between the West and the East. Instead, we should look closely to the Global South and see where we can cooperate and complement each other. For example, the current macro trends in energy transition and security could create new green resource superpowers. Many of them are located in the Global South. Many of you today are too young to remember this. But decades ago, the Global South may not have been able to have agency and decide for itself. For too long, we have been a bystander in international affairs. Earlier last week, I was in Japan to attend the 13th Asia Business Summit, and I recall that during a speech by the Prime Minister of Japan, Fumio Kishida, he highlighted an important message that struck me, which is that Asia is now a global growth center, accounting for more than a third of the world's GDP, and the future of our region will determine the future of the world. But at the same time, in the next 50 years, we will probably see not only an Asian century, but also an African century. And if Asia is the growth center of the world today, Africa will be the growth center that can sustain that growth. And of course, there are many uncertainties in the future, but we can be sure that the Global South will become more assertive, more dynamic, more active, and it's up to you to decide where will you go in the future. So in conclusion, I wish everybody today a fruitful discussion and exchange. Thank you very much.
Today's discussions, we will go ahead with the first sessions, where we're excited to present the first session focusing on the Global South and awakening the Global South perspective from ASEAN and Indian youth. The session's agenda focuses on the multifaceted role of youth as catalyst for India and ASEAN relations, to deliberate on issues of common India and ASEAN relations. With this line of thought, I'd like to begin the discussions laying the roadmap for a successful collaboration. I'd like to give my floor to the first delegate, Mr. Aryavir Sharma from the Geostrata, to make his opening remarks.
Ladies and gentlemen, visionaries, mavericks, and champions of change. I am Aryavir, a researcher and graphic designer at the Geostrata. Today, I'll delve into the profound significance of redefining the Global South. The Global South is not a monolithic entity. It's a vibrant mosaic of nations, each with its own unique strategic interests, economic realities, and cultural heritages. From bustling economies of India and Brazil to the resource-rich landscapes of Nigeria and Indonesia, these countries share commonalities but also possess distinct differences. Recognizing this diversity is essential to avoid oversimplification and to appreciate the multifaceted nature of the Global South. For too long, the development discourse surrounding the Global South has been framed by its relationship with the North. It is time for the Global South to craft its own development vision, one that leverages its natural and human capital and aligns with the aspiration of its people. By doing so, we can create a future where Global South is not just defined by its challenges, but also by its opportunities and achievements. The world is witnessing a significant shift in global power dynamics. By 2030, 3 of the 4 largest economies are projected to belong to the Global South countries. The combined GDP of BRICS nations already surpasses that of G7. This shift is not just an economic phenomenon, it's a geopolitical one. The rise of Asian nations and the increasing prominence of the Global South are challenging the historical dominance of the Global North. This transformation heralds a new era of global geopolitics where power is more evenly distributed and more voices are heard. As a key player in the Global South, India has demonstrated its commitment to redefining the global governance. At the Delhi summit, India championed the inclusion of African Union as a permanent member of G20. This bold move reflects an ambition to create a more inclusive global forum, recognizing the importance of African nations in the global decision-making. This sophisticated foreign policy, which avoids taking sides in the hegemonized North's politics, further underscores a nuanced and independent perspective on global issues. Redefining the Global South is essential to better represent the dynamic changes and diversity within these regions, moving beyond outdated stereotypes. South Asians in Western media have historically been depicted through narrow, often negative lenses, which impact societal perceptions and personal relationships as well. Progress has been made with more nuanced portrayals in shows you might have, of course, seen Never Have I Ever and characters such as Kingo in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as well as increased visibility for the South Asian actors like Anupam Tripathi in Squid Game. All in all, redefining the Global South to reflect its diversity and agency is essential for a more inclusive understanding of the world. It is not just a matter of semantics. It is a vital step towards acknowledging its diversity and promoting a new development discourse. It is about fostering innovation, creating a more inclusive global economic system, and ensuring that the voices of the Global South are heard and respected. Thank you.
Thank you, Aryavir. You have highlighted some key important points focusing on the opportunities rather than the challenges of the Global South. With these statements in mind, I'd like to give the floor to Jenny Sarivinata from the Foreign Policy Talks to deliver his or her opening remarks.
Thank you, Anirban Duta. Glad to see everyone here. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Jenny from Indonesia as the ASEAN delegate. So I think it's pretty challenging to fit everything into 3 minutes. So just cut me off if I goes too long in my remark, Anirban. So I think it's not fair to talk about Global South without first defining or contextualizing at least of the Global South, right? Well, South itself, the word is geographic, but now we know that the Global South is not just a matter of geography. We talk about political and economic weight as well, so much behind that, right? We talk about Australia. Do you agree to call Australia Global South? I don't think so. If you want to call say Singapore, that's another question all over again, right? And then we want to call Kazakhstan a Global South, but then right in the same, I think, line, there is Japan. Do you want to call it a Global South? No. So there are a lot of context that we need to really discuss about, but I just put it simply that a Global South should not really being accurately listed which one is Global South and not, because otherwise I think we get lost, right? So let's just come up with some trends that we see if we assume that Global South is a political and economic term related to the historical factor. Once we were colonized, we share this history, and then we were, at least if not colonized, then heavily dominated by some Global North countries. First trend that I want to raise is now the Global South countries have more weight in a way, be it economically or diplomatically, right? And because of this weight and confidence, growing confidence, then we are aiming for strategic autonomy now, that we're no longer want to rely on certain great power. And by saying strategic autonomy, to be honest, we haven't achieved there yet. It's okay. Some countries haven't achieved there, but we know that we aim for strategic autonomy now. So that's why we apply hedging strategy. We start to diversify engagement to so many other powers that are rising, right? And in this case, it's not only about non-alignment. It's not only about China, not just China. Well, everybody talk about the rise of China, but we're also talking about diversifying engagement with many other countries together as well, with fellow Southern countries. And that's first. This is a trend that we see from the Global South countries. And second is that we are starting to come up with our own narrative. BRICS is a very good example for this. Well, everybody says, many, not everybody, many says that BRICS is a China-led grouping. I don't think so. BRICS, we got Brazil, South Africa, India, who on its own capacity, they have their stance and strong vision on where to bring all of us together. And Brazil, Lula did mention this very well, saying that the BRICS is not a counter force to the Western-led order or the North-led order, but it's just the way that we organize ourselves, directly quoted, just the way that we want to just organize ourselves, basically, right? So this counter narrative is saying that, hey, we now know how to stand on our own, and we are heading there, and the world order that we used to have doesn't work for us anymore. That's basically the message that I think everybody start to point out from the Global South, and India has been a champion on this as well. That also does not only include political aspect, but also finance aspect, economic aspect. There's a lot of criticisms on the global financial architecture, which BRICS also is very focal on that, de-dollarization campaign, making this new development bank, and so on and so forth. I can mention many, but the time is not enough. But yes, that's the second point, right? And the third point, the last point probably, is that we are starting to establish more links together among the South countries because of that growing capacity as well. We see Indonesia had its own Indonesian aid now. Now we are giving, right? We used to be just receiving. Now we are giving. We have India also having a big aid. South Africa as well has its own aid, even it funds the regional effort there. The headquarters, they build it with their own money, South Africa. And I saw this number that they gave to the establishment of I think it was the AU mini body. The number that they have given from South African government to this effort is bigger than Indonesian aid total number given to some countries among the global South. So the trend is we are starting to give, and then we are starting to also establish links among each other. And this is led by the global South countries. Indonesia establishing Indonesia Latin America Summit, Saudi and Africa starting to establish links as well. Saudi Arabia make a summit together with Africa just last year or last 2 years. And then also Central Asia as well. And then ASEAN GCC Summit. Who did that? MBS and President Jokowi. And so we're starting to get there, which this trend was not there before. So that is the third trend. I hope I don't go too long. I can speak so many other points, but I think I just put it there first as a trigger discussion for later on. So thank you. Giving back to you, Anirban.
Thank you, Jenny. It has been you have gave a bit of a highlights about what exactly is the concept of the global South itself. It actually challenges the entire notion of what exactly the global South is all about when you go into the regions like the ASEAN or even the Central Asian region as well. But not by taking much ado, I'd like to pass the floor to Palaprathi Nagha to deliver her opening remarks focused on solidarity and shared prosperity among the global South countries.
Namaste. Thank you, Anirban, for giving me this opportunity. Good afternoon to one and all present here. My name is Anaga, and I am an ardent believer in the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means the world is one family. The topic I am talking about today is promoting solidarity and shared prosperity among the global South. In a world that is increasingly characterized by interconnected challenges and shared aspirations, talking about cooperation is very, very important. And India and ASEAN make up a big part of the global South, which together today faces very unique developmental changes. These challenges include economic disparities, which is the evidenced by vast differences in the GDP of different countries. There is also political instability and social inequality that plague this region. It is important to talk about these issues because promoting solidarity and shared prosperity among region is crucial for achieving this stability and sustainable development. So with that in mind, I would like to propose some strategies for the promotion of solidarity and shared prosperity between India and ASEAN. The focus, if put more towards regional integration, regional economic integration, like through agreements like SAFTA or the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, I believe that this will strengthen solidarity and promote economic growth in the entire global context, not just within the two countries, but in a multidimensional way. Then investment in human capital needs to be a lot more in terms of education or in healthcare. In some South Asian countries, like Sri Lanka, there is very high literacy rates, but these outperform many other developing countries, which is not how it should be. It should be collective development. So I find that investment in human capital is one way in which collective solidarity and collective prosperity can be encouraged in the region. Well, strengthening governance institutions will lead from efforts to combat against corruption, enhance judicial independence, and improve public service delivery. And I believe that these should be prioritized. In my concluding remarks, I would like to say that the methods that need to be used in order to bring forth collective prosperity include multifaceted and multidimensional approaches. And the end goal for all of these approaches should lead towards knowledge transfer and global sustainable development. Thank you.
Thanks, Anagha. You actually told a bit about the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and especially this statement becomes very important as we host the India-ASEAN Youth Conference of 2024, the second edition. So without much ado, I'd like to pass the floor to Suthita Chung from the Foreign Policy Talks to deliver her opening remarks.
Thank you. So I'm really taking a very humanistic take perspective on an issue. So it is said that thoughts become words, words become actions, and actions become character, which means the way we approach solidarity and share prosperity among the global south, it really depends on how we approach, how we frame the issue. And I mean, our region, our countries are no strangers to civil, political, economic, and cross-border conflicts where our differences are used against us. They are weaponized to divide us. So how can we build solidarity when all we see are all these differences? But sometimes we need to reframe our approach by seeing our differences, that our diversity is our strength when we talk about shared prosperity and mutual development. So recognizing that a human person, it really needs to come first before we touch on issues like politics and religion, for example, and passports. So seeing that humanity comes to fore, and that is what we need to prioritize when we're talking about promoting solidarity and shared prosperity. So this way, in a way that people can work together to create a common basis of understanding that can guide our concerted efforts towards national, cross-border, and regional development. And of course, in a way that where development is sustainable, it's equitable to the people who need it a little bit more, and that development itself is decentralized, is no longer concentrated among the very few people who hold power, who have access to technology, but it really belongs to everyone in the society just because we are all on equal grounds. We're all human beings. So yeah, that's really just a really short way of thinking about the way we need to reframe and reapproach this approach to promoting solidarity based on our shared humanity so that we can really co-create this shared prosperity for our region moving forward. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sudhira, for your opening statements, especially when it becomes important when you talk about the wars and the conflicts raging across the region, and especially if you see the case of West Asia and to a certain extent South Asia in a bit more micro level. So this also becomes very important when we talk about the importance of concrete partnerships in economic development. I would like to request Pearl Nirwan from the Geostrata to deliver her opening remarks.
Namaste and hello everyone. First of all, thank you Anirban for giving me the floor. I am Paul Nirwan, a researcher at the Geostrata, and today I'll propose possibilities for enhancing economic development through youth-led partnerships and engagement. The economic relations between ASEAN and India, for instance, can be enhanced by encouraging physical connectivity. In such cases, by creating a conducive environment that facilitates dialogue and exchanges, like the one we are doing today, but it's more of a virtual connectivity. But again, it helps empower the youth to take an active role in developing national programs that enhance trade and investments. The economic relations are not a standalone concept, but an action to revive the age-old civilizational linkages between India and the ASEAN. By harnessing the energy and expertise of youth through research, academic collaborations, and non-governmental organizations, we can drive trade and investment growth, foster innovation, and advance research that also supports the achievement of sustainable development goals. This collective effort will promote financial inclusion and enhance service delivery. In the end, I would like to say that by prioritizing youth-driven infrastructure development and long-term investments, we can strengthen partnerships and foster meaningful connections between both the sides. For it's the youth's creativity, optimism, and passion that will drive the innovation, the growth, and the progress that we seek. Thank you.
Thanks, Pearl. I'd like to give the floor to Timothy Henrys from the Foreign Policy Talks to deliver the opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Anirban. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And I guess to go the opposite to what Pearl discussed, more on youth-led activities, mine is more of a broader sense of India and ASEAN relations. So I want to discuss the evolving geopolitical dynamics within the Global South and explore how we can work together to navigate and mold this landscape. One is such as infrastructure development. So we have major powers, including China, which we can't really leave out, vie for influence, which impacts regional stability and development, such as the China's Belt and Road Initiative. ASEAN member states such as Laos and Indonesia benefit from the Botan, Vientiane, and Jakarta-Bandung railways, respectively. This comes alongside India's involvement in infrastructure projects in the country, like road and irrigation systems, which highlights these competing interests and investments in Southeast Asia. So ASEAN's role in promoting regional unity and dialogue is essential for balancing these influence and ensuring sustainable development. Another issue I would like to point out is maritime security. The Philippines, for example, which I come from, is strategically located in the region and plays a pivotal role in regional geopolitics. Recent disputes in the South China Sea underscore ASEAN's challenge in upholding international law and maintaining regional stability. So ASEAN's engagement with partners like India, which supports initiatives for maritime security and cooperation through forums like the ASEAN Regional Forum, is vital for addressing these common challenges. Finally, I'd also like to point out about economic cooperation. India and Indonesia is currently enhancing economic ties through initiatives such as the India-Indonesia Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement, where this agreement aims to boost trade, investment, and technology transfer between these two countries. So projects like India's involvement in Indonesia's port development and infrastructure sectors do exemplify this collaborative effort to foster regional connectivity and economic growth, not just for Indonesia, but for other ASEAN countries as well. So basically, in conclusion, navigating these geopolitical dynamics within the Global South demands strategic collaboration and engagement from ASEAN and India amidst these competing influences. So ASEAN's commitment to promoting unity and dialogue and diversity, coupled with India's Act East policy that brings proactive economic development and investment, are essential for fostering stability and sustainable development for all in both regions. So thank you.
Thanks. I'd now like to give the floor to Soumya Man from India to deliver her opening remarks.
Thank you, Honorable, for handing over the mic to me. It is an honor to address this esteemed gathering today as we delve into the fascinating realm of geopolitics in the Global South. With its diverse culture, histories, and aspirations, the Asia-Pacific region stands at the crossroads of global power dynamics today. As we discuss the awakening of the Global South, I would like to highlight some major themes that shape our collective destiny. Beginning with strategic rivalries and cooperation, we know the region witnesses intense geopolitical competition, as mentioned by Sudhira before. We have the traditional donors like Australia, France, Japan, New Zealand, and the US now engaging in a delicate dance with the dragon for influence. And we also know that India plays a pivotal role, as Timothy highlighted our Act East policy, which emphasizes stronger ties with ASEAN, fostering dialogue, economic cooperation, and regional stability. This brings me to the Quad initiative, which brings together India, US, Japan, and Australia with a shared vision for a free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific. There's infrastructure development, connectivity, and disaster relief, which lie at the heart of the collaboration. Thus, the ocean dynamics of the region are quite complex. We know that the Indian Navy actively participates in joint patrols, exercises, and capacity building programs. In the end, our goal remains safeguarding sea lanes and countering piracy. The Indian Ocean region acts as a strategic theater, and it demands a lot of attention. We collaborate with littoral states like the ASEAN countries to enhance security, trade, and connectivity. In the end, talking about the future, India's robust technology sector and skilled workforce positions us well. We need to deepen these economic linkages with the ASEAN nations, fostering growth and prosperity for the collective development for the entire Indo-Pacific. Lastly, cultural exchanges, educational programs, and people-to-people connections like we're having today amplifies our influence on a global level. Let us harness this power of ideas and shared values. I would like to conclude my remarks by saying that in this interconnected world, our choices matter. As youth from ASEAN and India, we hold the torch of progress. Let us awaken the Global South, shaping a future of cooperation, resilience, and shared prosperity. Thank you, and may our deliberations inspire action.
Thanks, Soumya. I would like to pass the floor to Elisa Shafika from the ASEAN to deliver her opening remarks.
Ladies and gentlemen, good day. My name is Alisa Shafika, a young peace builder and disarmament practitioner. It is an honor to speak on awakening the global south, particularly from the ASEAN lens. As a Malaysian, I bring insights from a nation poised to chair ASEAN next year, recognizing India's importance to both Malaysia and ASEAN. Where we talk about global south, often it implies underdevelopment and dependency. We must redefine it to reflect our strengths, resilience, and potential. ASEAN and Indian citizens are not merely recipients of aid. We are innovators, leaders, and partners. This redefinition challenges the narratives that pigeonhole us as peripheral players and asserts our rightful place as equal stakeholders in the global peace and security. The next point I would like to raise is also about solidarity among Global South. It is crucial for us to share our security together, but it is often undermined by internal divisions and external manipulations. We must foster genuine connections and understand among each other our diverse cultures to build a cohesive and robust community. Initiatives done like the ASEAN Youth Volunteer Program and even India's Act East policy are steps in the right direction, but it must be more than symbolic. Central to our efforts is also the empowerment of youth through frameworks like the Youth Peace and Security Agenda, UN Security Council Resolution 2250. This resolution recognized the crucial role in peace building and security for youths. This resolution calls for the meaningful participation of us in decision-making processes that affect our life and the communities that we have around us. ASEAN and India must ensure that implementation of resolution like this can be creating opportunities for youth to engage actively in conflict prevention, resolution, and peace-building initiatives. Lastly, the geopolitical landscape within the Global South is dynamic and fraught with a lot of challenges, often exacerbated by external powers, as mentioned by other speakers. ASEAN and India are at the crossroads of these major global influences. We need to navigate this complexity with a sense of responsibility, but also strategic thinking. We need to address non-traditional security threats that are more emerging these days, like climate change, maritime security, digital governance, and more. Climate change poses a direct threat to our livelihoods and stability, and we need to demand a stronger climate policies and cross-border environmental cooperation. Similar to the context of maritime security, particularly in South China Sea, it requires collaborative effort to ensure freedom of navigation and the protection of maritime resources can be done. In conclusion, the youth of ASEAN and India have a pivotal role in awakening the Global South. Let us redefine our identity, promote solidarity, and address these geopolitical challenges by tackling these non-traditional security threats together. By harnessing our collective energy, innovation, and spirit, we can create a secure and peaceful future for all nations and youth. Thank you.
Thanks, Alisa, for sharing your insights. Now, without much ado, I'd pass my floor to Shivam Rajput from India to deliver his opening remarks.
Thank you, Anirban. A very warm afternoon to all present here. My name is Shivam Rajput, a researcher at the Geostrata. As we all know that India and ASEAN are emerging as two superpowers from the global south, therefore I will talk about the strategies to build a successful collaboration with the global north. As we all know, the global north comprises the nations of the world which have witnessed a high level of economic and industrial development since the start of the Industrial Revolution. They are majorly located to the north of those nations who are less developed and economically progressive when compared to them. Some of the countries which form the part of the global north are the USA, the UK, Canada, France, Germany, and many more. From the start of the 21st century, we have seen a massive rise in multilateral engagements with the countries of the global north. Ever since the coining of the term Indo-Pacific, which includes the ASEAN and India, we have noticed that the Indo-Pacific region, stretching from Yemen in the west to Australia in the south, to Japan in the north and Hawaii Islands in the east, is rapidly becoming a region of global hotspot, with all the major developed nations investing in the form of military hardware sale, trade, infrastructure, and tourism. In the recent past, we have seen that host cities of G20 have been primarily from the global south, like Bali, New Delhi. Major countries from the global south, like India, are regularly invited to the major groupings like the World Economic Forum and the G7. During the 20th ASEAN India Summit in 2023, a proposal to establish a multimodal connectivity and economic corridor that links Southeast Asia, India, West Asia, and Europe was made. The Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, also highlighted the synergies of visions for Indo-Pacific between India and ASEAN and underscored that ASEAN is the focal point of Quad's vision. In the end, I would like to conclude that ASEAN and India are working together to bridge the gaps between the global north and global south. Also, these kind of roundtable meetings help in forming strategies to build a successful collaboration with the global north. Thank you. Over to you, Anirban.
Thanks, Shivam. Without much ado, you have highlighted some important points, specifically focuses on global south and global north relations. But it's better to move forward with the discussions with Felix Patrick from ASEAN to deliver his opening remarks. Felix?
Thank you, Anirban. So I think we have
Felix, your audio is
of
bit
discussions and
your audio is bit buffering,
on
Felix.
redefining global south. I think we can agree that it's futile. They are economically, politically, and sociologically diverse with various economic realities. Hello? Hello?
Yes, Felix, your audio was bit buffering. Can you just try to deliver your opening remarks once again?
I think we have lost Felix for now, but yeah, he has joined back again. Yeah.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, Felix, we can hear you. Please deliver
Yeah.
your opening statements.
I'm sorry for my connection, but first on redefining global south, and I think it's a bit futile because it's hard to really pinpoint on the commonalities because we're very diverse, right? Politically, sociologically, economically, historically, even different, right? But let's see what are the key modalities that we share in common, right? Global South is 125 countries. It accounts for 40% of the world GDP, and more importantly, 85% of the world population. So we have the modalities and demographics, but also as we see with major economic trends such as green transition, AI developments, and those kind of things, we also have modalities in natural resources. So let's step into those kind of things and see where we can work, right? Because with this many countries, I think creating a strategic groupings will be very hard. So let's create a strategic alignments. Like we have hotel rooms with many rooms. Let's knock on doors where we want to address a particular issue, right? And with regards with promoting solidarity is good if we have a shared common interest, right? And solidarity, by looking at our historical relationship, historical ties, it could work in some way, but at the end of the day, we have to see the future and what are the challenges ahead. The former ambassador mentioned about many things, many rapid trends that are changing, right? And we don't talk about that. We talk about our historical history, but we don't talk about the key challenges, the key issues that we should seek and address, because that's the fact that we have to do, right? And with the geopolitical context, we see that the global East and global West are trying to, have a sway on the global South, and even within the global South, some countries are making moves to become a leader, right? We have India, South Africa, China, Indonesia. There are many people that are trying to find more grounds, find more influence. But at the end of the day, we should try to see and find as point number four said, it's about concrete partnerships, right? And within global South, because we are very diverse and very unique, we should see and try to position ourselves and see where we can work together. And I think there is 4 things that we have to address. Number one is security, knowledge,
manufacturing, and financing. We cannot work with anyone if we cannot ensure that the people in each country is secure. We cannot work within our region if one of our members in the region is having internal conflicts, right? And every country have their own strength and modalities. Let's step into that. Indonesia might have a leading role in natural resource downstreaming. India might have a leading role in digital government, right? With your global performance centers, your service sectors. Africa might tap into their natural resources, their agriculture diversity. They have the largest non-export arable land. They could be the center that could provide food for everyone. So let's step into and see where our strengths are, and let's explore that, right? And with regards on strategic ways to build our partnerships, I think we should change the way the world is being structured, right? Because we are the shareholders, but at the moment, despite having more shares, we cannot have more votes. Look at the UN, look at the various global groupings where our voice is very limited. I have great appreciation for India for including African Union. That's a great first step, but what's the next steps? What can we explore? Japan have ASEC focusing on decarbonization, providing Asian solutions, because for too long we have been entangled with Western narrative, right? We have been for too long become a bystander of political and geopolitical realities, thinking that we don't have a choice, we don't have a say. But now we have a say, we have a choice, we have the narrative. The question is, what kind of narrative that we want to bring forward? Everyone have their own national interest, I agree. But at some point, we should see at the longer term, at the bigger picture, right? And perhaps this is just an idea. Let's pinpoint a shared enemy or a shared target that we want to address. Is it poverty? Is it security? Is it technology? Let's work on one key things and just deliver. Thank you.
Thanks, Felix. We will move into the discussion sessions in a very short while. I'd request all the delegates to raise your hands or mention your questions in the chat box. In the meanwhile, I'd like to address one of the questions which has been asked by Nandita Lata from India. Her question is, in what ways can the cultural exchanges and people-to-people connections between India and ASEAN can be strengthened to support the narrative and foster greater understanding between the two sides, especially if we consider Global South as a whole? The question is directed to Ms. Jenny Sarivinata from the ASEAN. Yes, Jenny. Did you hear the question correct?
Yeah, I'm reading the question. Is it the from Nandita Lata? Is it correct?
Yes, this is from Nandita Lata. She was asking about the Global South and what exactly the relationship between India and ASEAN in that context.
Yeah, well, preliminary thoughts. Thank you for the question and for the opportunity. Preliminary thoughts is, I think, ASEAN and India, well, we know that we belong to the Global South. And I think what we can, well, the Indian delegates can argue on this, but what I can share from my observation is that our foreign policy is heading towards more diversifying engagements. That's one thing, right? So India also is not relying on whether China or China or US, but it is standing on its own. But ASEAN can do this because we are together as a region, and we have this ASEAN-led mechanisms when we deal with the great powers and so on and so forth. India has the capacity to and has a great say in that, but not other countries yet in the Global South. And for that, I think our homework towards the future, everybody agrees that we need to increase partnerships, but our homework is how other countries from the Global South can also apply the same attitude and posture in between the geopolitical rivalries in a way, because otherwise then we can't be constructive and really deliver on public goods, and sometimes multilateralism has institutional constraints, and therefore needs alternatives from the global southern countries that have the capabilities to sort of take on the role and drive the wheels in a way. And that's what Indonesia has been doing, India has been doing. And in the Quad, it's not necessarily China-led, it's also India has been there actively and other countries as well. So be it unilateral approach or bilateral or trilateral or any kinds of ways that can really be agile in delivering public goods and for common interest, that would be our homework, and we need to be assertive more in the future. But if the question is on people to people, I don't really have any say on that. Maybe other delegates can jump into the conversation.
Thanks, Jenny. Thomas Noto Neto is from the ASEAN, has a question on maritime security. Can you please turn on your microphone and ask the question and address who this is to?
So maybe Timothy and Elisa respond to that, because I was just curious. I mean, when you highlight about maritime security, I was just curious on what kind of example that we can work, what kind of issues that we can address as party.
Anirban, do I respond?
Yes, sure. Please go ahead, Timothy.
Okay. Thank you. So, it would be selfish for me to say that I'm expert in maritime security, but so based at least from my observations, it's how I see ASEAN and India cooperating in this field is actually mostly India supporting ASEAN. So we see like the Indian Navy was able to save some Filipinos somewhere in the Gulf of Eden months ago, I think, when there was a pirate attack. Also recently, I've learned that India was able to send a ship across the South China Sea to show how it's willing to cooperate with other like-minded allies when it comes to the South China Sea disputes with the Philippines arbitration case. But I guess another area that would be good for where ASEAN and India can cooperate would be probably developing their own code of conduct in a way to show that, like for example, for context, like China and the Southeast Asian countries ASEAN countries have been coming up with this code of conduct since the past decade, and there have been no it hasn't moved forward as it should have been. But then if you have India, or for the case, okay, for India to come with their own code of conduct, working with ASEAN countries and showing that that they can cooperate and like have this published, then it shows to China, it shows China that they themselves can learn how to cooperate and not just like, sending their own coast guard to scare off away local fishermen in ASEAN countries. And I think another area that would be good to cooperate would probably be in maritime research, also protecting local fisheries, something that is more common. Because if you look into ASEAN, not every ASEAN country has a stake in the South China Sea. So having looked into areas that are more broadly, but at the same time that are more sustainable and that take care of the people, the communities that are affected by these issues, then I think that would be a good course of action for both ASEAN and India.
Thanks, Timothy. Now I recognize Soumya Mann from India to ask his question on conflict resolution processes in various regions. Please turn on your audio and ask the question. And please make sure who this question is addressed to.
So my question is addressed to Ms. Elisa. It's basically that how can we as the youth, according to her, play a more proactive role in the conflict resolution process, as she mentioned, that are happening in our regions and on the global stage as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Soumya. This question is addressed to Ms. Elisa. Ms. Elisa, can you please turn on your audio and ask and address the question?
Sure. I hope I'm audible, but if not, I can just reply later on the chat box in detail. But first and foremost, not only looking as like from an ASEAN lens, even Malaysia and India has a lot of ties where we both are democracies, right? And it's quite in a much more fragile, or like I would say vibrant in a sense. I think this is one of the biggest angle that we can take and leverage upon. We should have more youth in the leadership process, and that's where you can start creating more conflict resolution, because one of the key items we look at is mediation, and that looks at inclusion of marginalized communities into the policy-making processes. Aside from that, it's also resolving in this context, like I could say border disputes or even like cultural disputes. And that is some of like the angles that we can take upon. But going back to your question of like, how can we demonstrate this role, right? Obviously, the Ministry of Youth, as well as the related parties, should provide more spaces in this case where you can have more, it's either through leadership or like programs where you can have like this confidence building measures as well as understanding the community. So that's where we can actually have that entry point to kickstart a lot of these processes localized. And when you have a lot of this ground evidence, it is easier to connect with, let's say, regional institution in this context, like ARF, ASEAN Regional Forum, or even through UN, as we are sharing in the same, I would say, office of Asia Pacific. Therefore, a lot of these exchanges could be much more easier to be done in that way. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Now we come to the end of this first session, which focused on awakening the global South from the perspective in ASEAN and Indian youth. We come across concepts like the redefining the entire concept of the global South to managing conflict and conflict resolution techniques. Now, I would like to move to the second session, positioning ASEAN and India in the new global economic order, where Soumya Man will be hosting from India, will be hosting the event. I pass my floor to Soumya to focus more on the discussion so far.
Thank you, Anirban. It's safe to say that the first session on the awakening of the Global South was quite fruitful and insightful. We began with some extremely important remarks by the speakers and the panelists as well. We would begin the positioning of ASEAN and India in the global economic order with Mr. Hino Samuel, delegate from ASEAN.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay,
Please go
thank
ahead.
you. Thank you, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. To begin with, Indonesia and India share the same post-pandemic characteristic. I would like to quote the following process data from all sources, where India stood as the highest GDP growth in the first quarter of 2024 in G20 classification, more than 7.9%, and Indonesia fall with 5.1%. Indonesia are not top 10 countries with the worst inflation increasing to the GDP ratio, meaning Indonesia and India resiliency still prevail, albeit in general, ASEAN and India still some common challenges today, like but ASEAN and India group population is now rapidly booming, albeit ASEAN population growth is slower than both are now French by an increased demand for equal and affordable transition. Water, energy, food security and access becoming more important, prioritized by each ASEAN and India countries as the growth poses significant challenges for mid and long. Great partnership between ASEAN and India must advance collaboration against digital disruption. Considering that in ASEAN and India, each countries have a large share of informal economy. Climate change as well, geopolitical rivalry will always pose strategic challenges for ASEAN and India, especially with trust to multilateral systems such as the United Nations is now eroding, and the WTO, the World Trade Organization, is now under scrutiny for its disruption. Better partnership between ASEAN and India advance the ASEAN-led ASEAN Outlook Indo-Pacific and managing the Indo-Pacific peace and prosperity and synergizing it with India's Indo-Pacific Ocean Initiative that offer a concrete strategy and development partnership pathway that connect two regions in Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean in a complementary and substantial constructive manner. From those challenges and from those deliverables that ASEAN and India has worked on, for instance, last year in September 2023, the 20th ASEAN-India Summit was held in Jakarta. The meeting was fruitful, where we agreed to upgrade the ASEAN Agreement. I repeat, review, not upgrade. Review the ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement and promoting the role of ASEAN-India Business Council, regional capacity building program on digitalization, strengthening ASEAN-India 2021-2025 cooperation framework on agriculture, and also ASEAN-India has managed to adopt two joint statements on food security and maritime cooperation. From those deliverables, we can see that ASEAN and India share the same concerns. And now, on our way forward, I have 3 points. First, ASEAN and India should understand that currently, as an emerging actor, we will see local value addition or in downstreaming as one of the trends that is used to increase industrial value chain through more competitive products must now be scrutinized by both India and ASEAN. I apologize, my eyes exploratory. Nowadays, aside from the uptrend in global energy transition, energy insecurity also happens due to major war in Russia and Ukraine. ASEAN and India need to also understand that the cost of decarbonization must be pressed and kept cheap to ensure that it can be commercialized feasibly to be benefited by the people, while also ensuring that ASEAN India still has the needed transition. Second, ASEAN and India must institutionalize their interregional economic cooperation on blue economy, because EORA, for instance, Indian Ocean Rim Association and ASEAN can strengthen joint institutional partnership for more projects and also joint technical cooperation programs across maritime security, maritime economy, and also empowering the coastal community in both regions. And lastly, I would like to emphasize the following areas for avenues of collaboration between the ASEAN and India itself. Blended financing, where Delhi and other cities in India could be designated as a South Asia leading blended financing hub, and then advancing twin marine parks cooperation and ecotourism in Andaman region to complement the provisioning to complement the provisions mandated by the ASEAN India joint statement on maritime cooperation, disaster risk reduction, to ensure that food security issues can be tackled, because disaster is what decrease the harvest output of ASEAN and India's agriculture system. And in this regard, I would like to mention several things. Just 1 more minute. A prior research published by ASEAN India Center shows that India needs to further strengthen its capacity development for its upstream industries and to ensure that extraction could be optimized to leverage its critical minerals potential that has yet to be unearthed in Jammu Kashmir, for instance. Solutions such as joint venture, talent development training projects with ASEAN countries, and blended financing could be explored. Although Tesla will invest in India, it will be better if India can diversify its industry and collaborate with ASEAN, for instance, in battery recycling projects and joint research and strengthening talent exchange. India has the brain, India has the human capital, but ASEAN has the needed resource capital from the natural resources and also the technology. Hence, this could be complemented in a two-way manner. That's all. Looking forward for the next session to elaborate this matter further. Thank you.
Thank you, Hino. You very importantly talked about the GDP and economic distribution, also the digital and futuristic challenges we are facing. And it was really interesting how you highlighted many aspects of financial collaboration. With that, I move on to the first Indian delegate, Mr. Anirban Datta. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Soumya. So today I'll be discussing about how India and ASEAN can focus on enhancing economic linkages and fluctuations, especially when we see in terms of global trade in the recent period. So therefore, it is a high time that we create a regional value chain systems to strengthen economic cooperation among our countries. The benefits are many. The benefits can include strengthening the production systems. The case of textile manufacturing can be seen in this case. In this case, the textile manufacturers can benefit by engaging with countries like Cambodia, Vietnam, and Myanmar in the ASEAN countries. By importing cotton yarn and creating an FDI block in the sphere of garments and textiles. So this will enhance the collaboration between India and ASEAN in a big way. This will also result in the development of trade and economic linkages between the two sides, because India and ASEAN is consists of one of the blocks that doesn't not only shares the border, but also it shares a certain degree of historical linkages as well. So economic linkages will not only revive the global trade and the regional trade in between these two blocks, but it will also revive the historical linkages in between ASEAN. Secondly, I will also focus on enhancing the connectivity and infrastructural developmental plans, especially in ASEAN and India, to focus on the easy transfer of goods and services in the region. In such a case, such a system will result into the improvement of electronics and transfer of automobile production networks and in turn creating a people-to-people connectivity and institutional networks. I'm mentioning these sectors. The delegates may ask themselves why I am specifically mentioning these sectors in total, because these sectors in total has the capacity to create additional jobs, but it will also help in creation of people-to-people relations and engagement networks across the various platforms in India and ASEAN. This will also engage businesses between the two blocks, especially if we consider small businesses when we talk about garments and textiles, because India and ASEAN, and including many of the South Asian countries, especially if we consider Bangladesh as well, if we consider small countries as well in the ASEAN region as well, most of them have small industries as well. So it will result in the development of industries and overall develop a significant investment regime in this particular area. Such instances will also reduce the transit times and enhance the facilitation of documentations by creating enhanced exchange networks, especially between India and Southeast Asian countries. So the opportunities are many, as I've told, that global South is no longer the global South anymore. It is gradually turning itself to be a developing country, as many countries, including India, have graduated from being a less developed country to a developing one in the recent future. And therefore, India and ASEAN relations should focus on not focusing on current priorities, but focusing on small steps and make it a futuristic relationship between the two blocks to enhance trade and partnerships. Thank you, Soumya, and I pass the floor to you.
Thank you, Anirban. I think trade and development are something the youth present here would be most interested in. And also thank you for highlighting the sectoral, the sectors which have most job creation in the future. With that, I would move on to the next ASEAN delegate, which is Mr. Osvaldo.
Thank you, Soumya. Thank you, Anirban Gupta. Thank you, Samuel Jose. You guys have mentioned very, very interesting points and crucial points for ASEAN and Indian cooperations. But I might take it a little bit different. Where we have talked about change and innovation, these are always disruptive, as has been mentioned in the previous session and previously by the two speakers. Even if these changes that we do is for goodness sakes. And there would always be rejections. Many of you probably have heard of the term for pentahelix approach in programs and development for ASEAN countries and governments. But in these aspects, youth are especially important to become the catalyst for any development that has been made. If you want these catalysts, whether it's from a government, youth has to be there to voice out these movements, whether it's to increase the value chain, whether it's to focus on SMEs, MSMEs, small industries, small states cooperations. Youth has to start. Throughout being seen and being viewed, then we can start on these programs or cooperation that we have. But I would highlight that these are important, but also transitions are important for these changes that we are going to make. If I were to explain a bit more on possible sectors that we might expand on or collaborate on, is, for example, from the pentahelix approach, we have talked about transition, which means we can also talk about energy and commodities, such as coal, oil, CPO. As much as we want to talk about sustainability or green investment or green development in the future, we also have to address our current reliance on these economic modules, on how we can slowly or accurately transition softly for people who has been working on these aspects to transition to the more futuristic aspects, as mentioned by Mr. Panis Banduta before. Now, these transitions are very important. It should be forced because right now, the Global South is enforced to apply with the European and even Global North standards of RED for CPO, TKO, PKO, for palm oil and other oils. But on these standards, they themselves are not applying these for these cases. This might conclude with Mr. Felix's approach before of making a supposed enemy. But maybe instead of an enemy, we seek for a justifications for a united policies law between all areas. If the Western and the Global North wishes to apply certain policies, then it should be justified that we also have our terms that they should also understand if we are to apply these cases in cooperations. When we talk about positioning, it is not just us with one another, but it is also us to the rest of the world. So how are we going to leverage and unite our movement, especially in these areas? Not only mentioning for energy and commodities that we could trade, ASEAN and the whole Asia region also facing a noodle dilemma in which we already have so much cooperation. What we do need is the approach for each of these cooperations to be maximized. Youth can be especially important in these aspects as we can foster direct connection instead of one that relies only on certain institutions or types of collaboration. We could instead either continue or enhance these collaborations further or branch it out in ways that are beneficial for these countries. Moving on, not just as an energy, we could also use Asia, especially India and ASEAN, as a sandbox region. As has been previously mentioned, whether it's foreign direct investment, or maybe some of you have heard for venture capitals on startups and innovations. These areas are very important, especially if we compare between the ASEAN region and the Western region, where some countries depend their economy on 70% of SMEs. Indonesia alone depends its economy 60% on SMEs. These small businesses and industries are crucial to economic development. When we talk about these small economic development, they made up the bulk of these trade and cooperation between countries, which again connect back with the pentahelix approach. When we want to position, we should also have roles for the private, government, media, people, and youth will be a catalyst for all of these together. Sandboxing is very important when we try to apply whether it's policies or cooperations or PPP, public-private partnership. When we want to apply public-private partnership, when it's applied, explained before by Samuel Hino Jose, whether it's blended finance, sovereign loans, or non-sovereign loans, which is a recently one that's been proven by AFD French to apply in Southeast Asia region. They invest directly not in governments, but to state enterprises. These modules of investments and cooperations are crucial, but the roles for an ecosystem for everyone to actually cooperate together is even more crucial if we want to foster cooperations and position ourselves to the international economic order. I think I would cut myself a bit short because Anirban Duta and Jose has already talked about so many data, but I'm very much open to explain these conversations more. Thank you.
Thank you, Oswaldo. You very cohesively talked about the global north, noodle dilemma, VCs, and even PPP. With that, I move on to the next Indian delegate, Ms. Deepika Gupta, please.
Hello, everyone. This is Deepika Gupta. I'm working as a research analyst at the Geostrata, and today I would like to discuss on the efforts through which India and ASEAN countries can strengthen and diversify their economic and trade partnership. So to start with, bringing in more transparency in the partnership is really crucial. Improving trade compliance through unified digital trade platforms, easing the logistic procedure with the help of AI, and investing in sustainable infrastructure like Anirban mentioned, like green ports and smart logistic, all this will help better facilitate the trade relations among the partners, because improving coordination and cooperation in international trade and related services through digitalized documentation and standardization would help better reduce the transaction cost and foster the growth of transaction and increase trade. And it is also imperative at this point that the partner economies start with reducing and removing the tariff and non-tariff barriers by entering into trade agreements with each other. For instance, creating a comprehensive digital trade agreement that can bridge the regularity gaps that is between the partner economies. If you look at the data suggests that the gap has been widening between India's export and imports, with Asian nations resulting in a huge trade deficit. So here the reduction of such barriers, tariff and non-tariff barriers, promises the incentivization of increased trade with the support of collaborative approach. And also a very positive thing to look forward to is that India's digital economy is on the rise. So this offers a huge potential for strengthening its trade partnership with the ASEAN countries through instrumentalization of digital trade and e-commerce platform, because we all know that science, technology, and innovation is crucial to all Asian economies. And with shared knowledge and research development, the nations can translate the research output into implementable solution. So considering the global economic landscape, and geopolitical dynamics, it is crucial that the economies move towards a more proactive approach into fostering a mutually beneficial trade relations with each other and exploring the possibilities of enhancing our partnership through steps like digitalization, enhancing market access by creating a unified market intelligence system, and fostering innovation in technology exchange through dedicated bilateral funds. All these remains essential in order to harness the complete partnership, the complete potential that that this partnership has. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Deepika. You threw light on some very interesting areas to look into for sustainable and digital future. With that, I give the stage to Mr. Jackie.
All right, thank you, Samya. I'm a sophomore student of International Relations field in Laos, National University of Laos. As we navigate an increasing of the complex world, it is imperative that we focus on intensifying efforts for energy and food security to ensure sustainable, inclusive growth for both regions. First and foremost, energy security is a major challenge. ASEAN and India are both experiencing significant economic growth, resulting in rising energy demand. To solve this problem, I suggest forming an ASEAN-India energy partnership. This project would prioritize collaborative research and development in renewable energy resources like solar, wind, and biofuels. By using India's solar technical developments and ASEAN's various renewable resources, we can reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, reduce greenhouse gases emissions, and establishing a sustainable energy future. So collaborative projects under the agreement could include establishing regional energy innovation centers and forming joint ventures to attract the green capital or investments. Like Prime Minister Modi has frequently highlighted the strategic importance of ASEAN and India relations during the 25th anniversary of ASEAN-India partnership in 2018. He emphasized the need for enhanced connectivity, trade, and investment between the regions. So he also mentioned the importance of collaborating on renewable energy and sustainable development. So this method is consistent with the ASEAN-India Green Fund's goals, which include broadening its scope to develop a robust or strong green energy sector. Second, food security is a critical issue that requires our attention. Both ASEAN and India relying significant on agriculture, especially in my home country, Laos, but confront issues such as climate change, land declaration, and water scarcity. To address these concerns, I advocate forming an ASEAN-India Sustainable Agriculture Alliance. This alliance would prioritize developing sustainable agriculture methods, increasing food production efficiency, and ensuring equitable distribution of food resources. Like Deepika mentioned recently, we can use digital technologies like AI and IoT in the initiatives to optimize farming techniques and improve supply chain and cut food waste. So moreover, enhancing trade and investment flows between ASEAN and India is crucial for achieving energy and food security, simplifying trade procedures, and reducing non-tariff barriers through ASEAN-India Trade Facilitation Agreement can significantly boost the flow of agriculture and energy products. This agreement should emphasize the use of digital tools to streamline customs procedures, ensure transparency, and also reduce trade costs. So such a measure will not only make trade run more smoothly, but will also ensure that essential goods reach those who in needs as soon as possible. So finally, human capital development is a critical in maintaining energy and food security. So the ASEAN India Student Exchange Program can be expanded to incorporate vocational training and skill development in the sustainable energy and agriculture, resulting in a workforce prepared for the future. Establishing ASEAN India Centers of Excellence in this disciplines would promote innovation, also information sharing and capacity building for both regions' youth and peoples, providing our youth with the necessary skill which require to drive tomorrow's economies. So to conclude, the situating ASEAN and India in the emerging global economic order demands a device approach. We can assure both regions' energy and food security by establishing ASEAN-India Energy Partnership and also in ASEAN-India Sustainable Agriculture Alliance, as well as simplifying trade procedures, investing in human resources. So let's ask work together to create a prosperous and sustainable future for ASEAN and India as a whole. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jackie, for bringing energy, the sector, and food security into the conversation today. They are crucial and common issues that both the regions face. Now, I would hand over the stage to Mr. Digvijay, our Indian delegate.
Thank you, Soumya, for giving me the floor. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Digvijay Singh, a research analyst at the Geostrata. Since we are having this session on establishment of regional and resilient global value chains, let's not forget that India and ASEAN are two of the biggest drivers of economic growth in the global south. Right. Now, ever since COVID-19 struck the global supply chains back in 2019, there has been a constant lookout for establishing more resilient, diverse, and reliable supply lines so that the global economy does not suffer as it did in the recent past. Additionally, as more and more enterprises are looking to diversify their manufacturing base, Southeast Asia, specifically ASEAN and India, are the obvious beneficiaries, given the crucial advantages both bring to the table. Now, India and ASEAN offer a distinctive combination of young and skilled workforce, an export-oriented trade policy, an established manufacturing sector, which is further supported by a robust financial sector. Now, if the two regions seek to deepen their collaboration and cooperation at establishing resilient and sustainable supply lines, we need to make sure that we cooperate where needed and compete where necessary. Let's take a real-world example. Both India and ASEAN depend on low and mid-tech imports to realize their domestic and international demands. Now, I ask you this. Why should these two powers have to depend on imports for such crucial components in their production processes? Now, there is much scope for the two partners to come together and establish regional value chains, further facilitating the relocation of production bases at various stages, depending upon the need and demand seamlessly across India and ASEAN. For the same, I propose a joint working group to be constituted and with members representing all the ASEAN nations and India. The group should comprise government officials and industry experts in a predetermined ratio, right? So that all the concerns are accommodated. The group's primary aim should be acknowledgement and accommodation of all the common concerns and then adopt a common minimum program approach to rectify them. The initiative can further be realized through joint ventures, the transfer of technology, foreign investments in each other's economies, and government-to-government agreements. With India and ASEAN so well connected through land and sea routes, it's imperative to aim at a greater economic integration of the two economies that will drive growth and prosperity in the region. As I conclude, I am confident that a cooperation between India and ASEAN on establishment of regional value chains will play a constructive role in the economic integration of the two economic powerhouses, ultimately consolidating the ruptured supply lines globally. Lastly, I thank this panel for their commitment, and I'm looking forward to more discussion on the inputs that I put forward.
Thank you, Digvijay, for talking about the global supply chains and the alliances surrounding it, especially focusing on the production sector. Next, we move to the ASEAN delegate, Mr. Bryce.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Bryce, and I'm from Brunei Darussalam. And it's also nice to meet some familiar faces here. I'll be mostly talking about infrastructure, as recently it has been a very big interest of mine. And I enjoy the prospect of how infrastructure development has the potential to affect economic development, similar to what Timothy and Anirban touched on just now. So basically, a basic overview from ASEAN and India is that ASEAN collectively have a GDP of over $3 trillion, which is similar to in India. So collectively, there's a GDP that surpasses $6 trillion. India technology in manufacturing and services, especially with initiatives such as Make in India and Digital India, position it as a very important driver of global economic growth. Shout out to the Indian delegates. And both ASEAN and India basically have common challenges to reach its full potential, which is income inequality. So there's a very big divide between rural and urban areas. And personally, I believe that this can be solved through solid infrastructure development. To meet the demands of these rapidly developing economies, both regions can collectively enhance their transportation network, energy supply, and digital infrastructure. And one of my hopes is that there will be more collective or joint infrastructure projects between ASEAN and India. There are also several key projects at the moment that are underway or proposed to enhance land connectivity between India and Southeast Asia. For example, the India-Myanmar-Thailand trilateral highway, which connects India and ASEAN through Myanmar and Thailand, the Kaladan multimodal transit transport project, and the proposed extension of the trilateral highway that connects India to Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And personally, I hope that there'll be more sea and land routes as well, especially rail routes that connect both our regions together. It's also interesting to point out that like individual ASEAN member states can offer specific strengths in joint infrastructure projects. For example, Singapore, which specializes in financial service, Malaysia with construction technology, Thailand with its expertise in sustainable infrastructure development and agriculture technology, Indonesia with a lot of their large-scale infrastructure experience, Vietnam with its manufacturing, of course, Philippines, service sector, Brunei, where I'm from personally, we specialize in energy infrastructure, Myanmar, which is a very big area that has a lot of potential, Cambodia with its growing industry, and Laos with its potential for regional connectivities through railway and highways. And I also know that it's a very interesting fact that we all have very diverse specialties. However, India can also complement these strengths as they have their own specialties, which are probably from what I heard from a lot of my Indian friends, they call it the world toughest education system. I don't know if I should feel impressed or scared, but perhaps it's a topic for another time. But basically, India can offer a lot of technological expertise. A lot of CEOs from around the world in technology companies are from India, which is very impressive. And they have a very huge manufacturing industrial capacities, financial and human resources. And they have a lot of large-scale projects, and they can offer the experience and insights. For example, the Golden Quadrilateral Highway Network and a lot of their big metro rail systems, which is very impressive as well. So by leveraging these strengths from both regions, we can create a very powerful synergy that will place us in the new global economic order, and it will give us a lot more leverage in the region. So basically, through connecting India to mainland Southeast Asia by land, you can also exploit the existing sea routes to Indonesia, Philippines, Brunei, and Malaysia. So yes, and also to answer previous questions for people and people connectivity, there's a lot of examples that has already happened through business and trade. For example, popular Indian foods such as roti, which is the Southeast Asia version of prata from Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, and biryani, which is also very popular in Southeast Asia, is a very good example of how food in general can promote people exchange, and how Thai and Vietnamese food is also gaining popularity in India. And personally, I believe that we can take a step further and have a more viable connection through land to push more culture, trade, and of course, food to improve relations with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Bryce, for bringing technology into the conversation. We have a lot of common challenges and also the possible ways to tackle these. And also, very interestingly, you highlighted the specialities of all ASEAN countries. With that, I move on to our next Indian delegate, Mr. Manan Singh.
Thank you, Soumya, and a very good afternoon to everyone. I am Manan, and I'm glad to be here at the ASEAN India Youth Conference 2024. I'll be sharing my views on the topic India-ASEAN Champions of Sustainable Economic Development. And I would like to begin by saying that I think India and ASEAN have a long-standing partnership. And since that partnership is so strong, ASEAN comes out to be India's second largest bilateral trade partner in the world. And alliances and agreements like the ASEAN-India Free Trade Partnership and the ASEAN-India Business Council are a testament to that and how ASEAN and India have strengthened their economic cooperation. However, realizing the need of the hour, I feel India and ASEAN are also looking for sustainable economic development, and as Bryce has highlighted. And when it comes to that, I think as the Minister of External Affairs joint statement suggests that primarily they are looking for cooperation in the areas of biodiversity, sustainable development, environment and climate change, prioritizing on clean energy and low carbon energy, especially energy security. And that also aligns with the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation 2021 to 2025, as well as India's renewable energy priorities. And not just that, but India and ASEAN are also cooperating for smart agriculture. Sorry, are cooperating for smart agriculture and are also having programs where there are farmer exchange taking places in order to exchange knowledge. And besides these two priority areas, they're also looking for cooperation in science, technology, and innovation to strengthen ties in blue economy, as suggested previously, sustainable development, and climate action, which becomes very important, realizing the crisis the world faces today. But I think the best path India and ASEAN are taking is of learning from each other through city-to-city collaboration and cooperation in the space sector. I think that sets an example for the world in the way ASEAN and India are trying to learn from each other's best practices and adopt from them. But as a young member sitting today, the point I would like to emphasize on is youth leadership. And something which I have been an advocate of is that youth is not just the leader of tomorrow, but also the leader of today. And I think considering age as the criteria for considering who a leader is might be unjust, realizing the capability the youth has in it. And the sheer number it exists in, which is the highest the history of this planet has ever seen, I think youth can be major contributors for sustainable economic development and can actually drive change. And this is something which I say, realizing the efforts the youth has put in all across the world, especially in the global south, ASEAN and India, to ensure sustainability in their local areas. And I feel such a platform and such a conference is a great start for youth to collaborate, to interact, and exchange ideas and work together to not only set an example for their countries, but set an example for the world that youth and cooperation can bring about a change which is unprecedented. And I would like to end on a lighter note by thanking Bryce for mentioning biryani, actually, because that is something which originates from the city I come from. So I think that is a good start when it comes to the soft power collaboration we discuss. And I would like to conclude by saying that when it comes to sustainable economic development, it is the youth of ASEAN and India which will take forward, because we can drive change from today and for the upcoming decades. Thank you.
Thank you, Manan, for your remarks for a sustainable path to development in the energy sector and innovation by the youth. With that, I move to the last ASEAN delegate we have today, which is Mr. Suba.
Good evening. Am I audible? Hope I am.
Yes, you are.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Suba, and I'm the last speaker, and I'm pretty sure everyone is very tired hearing everyone's opinions. So thank you very much for giving this platform. I'm representing FPI from Malaysia, and it's a privilege to speak at this esteemed forum with all of y'all. And I would like to center my arguments in these three critical areas, and that is economic strength and opportunities, energy and food security, and the importance of sustainable development. One of the key remarks in the opening remarks shared by one of the speakers, I think it was Aryavir Sharma, that was reframing the development discourse. And I think that is where India and ASEAN both could come in, because everyone is talking about the global north, global south, but whatever the global issues is, and everything you mentioned just now, from climate change to energy and food security, the solution is always global. You know, you can increase the solidarity within South-South solidarity, global South, and etc. But then it's always going to be global, and I think that's where I would highlight my key arguments as well. So firstly, for economic strength and opportunities, as we all has mentioned before, ASEAN and India, each with 3.6 and 3.4 trillion GDP respectively. They are booming, they are really good, but where can we further proceed in this area? So India has its new strategy, and Dr. S. Jaishankar has been doing a great job, fantastic, brilliant recently with his foreign policies. And despite BJP's recent loss in the electoral consolidation of power, nonetheless, Modi's government, in terms of foreign policy, under Dr. S. Jaishankar's brilliance, is going very well. And I think Malaysia specifically is also mirroring something like that in terms of Make in India. We have that policy here today. We are bringing also the tech industries here to creating global data centers in Malaysia itself. And of course, this is happening across the region. And bringing more manufacturing boom, attracting more tech giants, Intel, AMD, NVIDIA, and so on into this region, just like how India has been doing for the past decades, is also something I think the ASEAN region as a whole requires, because as someone mentioned, we compete in areas we can, but we cooperate in areas that we must. Tech and AI is the new big thing, and these are areas we are competing. At the same time, we have to be cooperative. We have the human capital. We have much low cost when it comes to setting up these bases, and we must explore as much as we can. And thankfully, in a very insane way, due to India's strategic position on aligning and working towards ASEAN collaboration, is thanks to the US-China trade war, whether you like it or not. That is what's happening, and both sides are exploiting this to the maximum benefit. And that one way is to bring more tech giants in. But how can Digital India integrate more with ASEAN? And that is where I would recommend that India's Digital India initiative, aimed at transforming India into a digitally empowered society, it has to be integrated with ASEAN digital economies. And how? Well, for startup, it could be your e-commerce, the digital payments, and also cybersecurity, because these are regions where ASEAN requires more, and India could be a really good player in supporting ASEAN region as well. And secondly, would be a case study I would recommend. One person previously mentioned about sandboxes and innovation hubs. And I think that's a really good idea. Collaborating and integrating India's sectors, supported by regulatory sandboxes and innovation hubs, could be a really global, established, a much more better success when it comes to growth in tech and foster financial inclusion or innovation. And Singapore has done this with Western countries in terms of ASEAN. So it's something we could emulate as well. And that it will be for the digitalization, economic strength, and opportunities for energy and food security. Again, with trade protectionist policy from India, Malaysia was affected time and time, and thanks to Dr. S. Jaishankar renegotiating these deals with Malaysia, specifically because our staple food is rice. And because of the trade barriers, we were experiencing a shortage of rice, and our rice prices was fluctuating. The government had a lot of instability in that case. And this is where I believe India can also work towards us. We both have to aim to work towards renewable energy by 2025. India's International Solar Alliance promotes solar energy, community-based renewable projects. And these are also inspired by Western-centric governments itself on community wind farms and from Germany and so on. So how you can integrate with Malaysia is that you need to engage with local communities and promote green energy. So a case study that I would refer to is to Thailand's bioenergy initiative. I hope there's someone from Thailand here. And what they did was they successfully implemented bioenergy projects using agricultural waste. And India and other ASEAN countries can also adopt a similar initiative to reduce reliance on fossil fuels. We are buying coal from India. And if you want to talk about shifting towards sustainable development, these are the things that you need, bioenergy initiatives and so on. And another sector that many people do not know is we are exporting the most amount of beef from India, and this is a halal. Malaysia is moving towards to become a halal hub. So meaning we want to be known as the producers and the exporters of halal meat industries. And despite having India as a key partner, that's a problem, awareness of the citizens. And even amongst many in ASEAN, we do not know that most of our beef are coming from India. So redefining, working on some bit of PR to talk about India's reliable rice trade and beef imports to our country on food security matters can definitely improve more conversation and discourse in terms of food security as well, and also to work on things like vertical farming, because another, I want to relate this to sustainable development later, and that is how you can expand on sustainable aquaculture. So this has been done by Indonesia. So Indonesia's expansion of sustainable aquaculture has improved food security and livelihoods. This model can be replicated by ASEAN and India to enhance our food production and economic resilience. Now back to sustainable development, because that's what we want. We don't want that Western-centric thinking of big technological advancements, suddenly you just solve the climate change situation. We got here in the first place due to the big technological advancements without knowing the implications of this. We didn't know steam engines burning coals would release massive amount of carbon in the environment, and that we can't solve it in the next couple of decades. So now we understand that, and now how is this both big giants in terms of trade is going to work towards this, because we need to destroy or utilize or exploit our natural resources for growth. And one of the major arguments from West would be, so what, India and Malaysia or any ASEAN country go destroy 30 hectares of forest, and automatically in the next 10 years, you're going to become the big next economic thing? No, answer is no. So, and that's not true as well. So how are we going to work on sustainable development? And that is going to be, my suggestion with both Malaysia and India, since they are transitioning from coal to sustainable energy, public-private partnership. So we also had this discussed just now. So for example, another Western case study would be Denmark's offshore wind farms that drive renewable energy investments in other countries. So considering BRICS membership, Malaysia is now planning to join BRICS as well. A lot of discourse is on that, on what it will entail. But then this could also enhance Malaysia's global influence and also redefine the discourse on sustainable development as well, because we do not necessarily need that big tech transformations, but also indigenous knowledge that has been practiced for years in India and ASEAN region. This knowledge sharing has to happen as well. To add that to the technological growth, then yes, you are able to see a huge amount of growth in terms of sustainable development. So for example, would be India's traditional water conservation practices. And so in Rajasthan and Jorhat, you can see the water conservation systems that has been established for years. And these are the knowledge sharing that we want with ASEAN countries as well. And also space missions. And as I said, PR, soft power really matters. Everyone's talking about biryani, probably everyone's hungry, but also space exploration is one region India has made huge success. And it has to open up and share this technology and resources with ASEAN communities as well, because these countries are very small. When was the last time you heard ASEAN countries moving towards space industry? And the reliance on West is extremely high. And I think India could be, it wants to be a responsible stakeholder in terms of sustainable development and also space exploration. And that is definitely something ISRO can work to with the Malaysian or ASEAN countries as well. And one more interesting thing that I'll always love is that soft power through chess diplomacy. And chess is a huge thing in India. And they share this with their neighbors, like Maldives and so on. You have regional competitions, but ASEAN was never a big part of it. So when it comes to soft power, sports, food, everything is part of it. And I think training camps, cultural ties, and of course, universities exchange, that is where most of the students understand what is India's policies as well. Because today, if you go to the streets and ask any Malaysian, what is their stance, what is India's stance on Malaysia, Gaza, Palestine, Israel? They would say India supports Israel. They would not know that India has been supporting the two-state solution for decades. Question that. Is it because social media, or is it because people just don't have the understanding, or because there's no knowledge transfer? There's no cultural exchange. There's not happening. I'm not saying there's completely nothing. There is an Indian Commission here doing a lot of activities. Recently, we had the World Yoga Day. But then it's not similar to China. All right, China, you have tons of students going into the West, coming into Malaysia. Now we have the visa free and so on. So there's a lot more sharing, and China really emphasized on media image to look all responsible stakeholders, savior kind of image. India may have to step up their game to change the narrative if they want to be a global superpower emerging by 2030. And I think ASEAN is a really fertile ground for them to work with in that aspect. And I'm really hopeful and to continue on this discourse to hear from everyone as well. And thank you very much for this opportunity. Back to you, Speaker.
Thank you, Subha. It was interesting to hear your understanding of the Indian foreign policy and about the bioenergy trade and production, as well as the soft power dynamic. With that, I move to the Indian delegate, Ms. Nandita Lata.
Namaste, everyone. I would like to extend my gratitude to Ms. Soumya for providing me the opportunity to address here. I am Nandita Lata, and I'll be talking about the combined economic strength of India and ASEAN combined. It has been more than 30 years to this fruitful relationship between India and ASEAN. This strategic partnership plays a great role in exemplifying the economic strength of both the countries. This relationship has served as a crucial and necessary cornerstone in India's foreign economic strategy. Now, while talking about the relationship has been on a steady rise for 3 decades now. India's Look East and now Act East policy has played an important role in evolving the relationship between the two. India and ASEAN together make up the third largest economy in the world, and ASEAN and India registered a two-way trade of $131.5 billion in the fiscal year of 2022 to 2023, accounting for 11.3% of India's global trade in this period. As rightly mentioned by Ms. Deepika, the reduction of tariff barriers promise the incentivization of increased trade. Adding on to that, there will be talks and discussions regarding zero tariff concession policies on various commodities, which will further help in enhancing and encouraging the growth of domestic industries. Furthermore, I would also like to highlight digital diplomacy and integration of United Payment Interface known as UPI with the ASEAN countries. It will play an enormous role in further emphasizing the economic strength of India and ASEAN, since tourism has been on a constant rise between the two as well, which also results in increasing connectivity and need for UPI. The robust, cost-effective, and scalable Indian digital public infrastructure can play a huge role in integration and increasing connectivity between the two. To conclude, the ever-increasing strength of the Indian economy alongside the geopolitical realm provides opportunities for India and ASEAN both to foster closer relations. Thank you.
Thank you, Nandita, for those interesting insights. Now we move on to the question and answer part of this conference. I would like to ask Oswaldo to ask his question to Digvijay. Could you please unmute and ask the question?
Is it the question for Vijay? DG Vijay? Am I pronouncing it correctly? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
For my question, you mentioned joint ventures and involving the experts from industry experts. Would it be preferable? In what capacity would it be? Would it be individualist? Would it be a company based? Would it be cooperations? Because these are important. Development and changes for these are very much important, but the way we approach these actions are just as important. Because if we do not approach it in a cohesive manner, in a comprehensive manner, involving all the stakeholders that's needed, but fast forward a few quarters or a few years, we come into hiccups that probably shouldn't be there in the first place. Maybe you could explain better.
Yeah, that's a good question, Osvaldo. Now, since I've already mentioned in the chat box, and I'll reiterate again, the thing is that when we talk of India-ASEAN joint working group, we have to make sure that we don't just accommodate our domestic issues. We have to make a list of all the common issues which are like mutual for all the partner nations, right? We cannot actually say that yes, India faces or Indian businesses face this problem, but maybe that is not a problem for Indonesia, right? So how can Indonesia be a part of that that working group, because we have to first get a list of all the common issues that we are facing. Then we approach it with a common minimum program. That is, these are the fundamental issues which are common for all the nations. And once we build a path for that, once we rectify all these common issues, only then can we clear out all the offshoots of it. And again, the businesses are the people on ground. So you have to consult them. But again, now we cannot say that who are we prioritizing? Is it the industry experts, that is the academia, the government officials, or the businesses? But it is at what stage are we consulting them? So that's my whole point of argument.
Would it be, sorry if I just put in a bit more, would it be preferable if there is an existence or currently there are a few institutions already researching and analyzing roles, important roles for both countries, both regions on what to do and how to do it?
Yes, that would be preferable, and academia has certainly a role to play in it, because of course the government officials cannot be in touch with everyone, as we know, right? So the academia has to play a good role in that, in providing viable solutions for all the problems that everyone is facing, right?
I think that answers my questions.
Okay.
Maybe other times I would love to have a call with you.
Yes, sure, man.
Thank you, Digvijay and Osvaldo. I would like to now give the stage to Mr. Hino for asking his question.
I was about to ask question, but maybe I'll answer directly Mr. Pearl question in the chat box towards me. Thank you, Mr. Pearl from India, about the question. So I would like to deliver several points. First, in order to enhance quality and also reduce poverty and enhance the equality also in the region, of course, water, energy, and food security and access now becoming more important to be prioritized by each country in ASEAN India, again, as the population growth. And of course, both ASEAN and India, need to work together to increase the market appetite. For instance, ASEAN needs to work on how to increase market appetite for India's goods, trade in goods that are important, as Southeast Asia is known for its manufacturing industries. But however, India should also try to see how to ensure that, aside from services, because from the past research that I read last night, it is said that there are many critics towards the ASEAN-India trade in goods agreement because, it is not sustainable for Indian businesses. The tariff lines is different. India's tariff line is more enormous compared to what ASEAN has to offer. Hence, aside from the review that we are trying, that the high leaders has already agreed last September, of course, we need to see this as well as an opportunity for this trade review to see on the way forward how we could enhance the promotion of trade in goods that could close the inequality between the two regions. I would like to also mention another points. First, nowadays, aside from the uptrend in global energy transition, energy insecurity also still happens, right? Of course, we have the Russia-Ukraine war. I think previous delegates have already also mentioned several issues about energy security. And also, we need to realize India, ASEAN, and then we have neighbors near to India is the Gulf countries, the Middle East, yeah. The Gulf countries, they are also tend to be prone to regional escalation because of the current US, Arab, Iran, and Israel tension. So we have the opportunity to promote cooperation between ASEAN and India in critical energy transition minerals needed for the green transition, such as nickel, tin, copper, and rare earth. Because we realize Russia and Ukraine and the Middle East, the Gulf countries, they are not reliable in the long term. They are prone to conflicts. Hence, we need to diversify our trade. And also, I would like to bring one more thing. I watch these TikTok videos here. Sometimes Indian TikToks arrive to my, aside from the comedy Indian TikToks that arrive to my FYP, I also sometimes see other kinds of English Indian TikToks, yeah. So I see that we have one thing in common. we love to try to see how we are not only trading the goods that are raw, but we also try to process products. And this is one of the things that India also do when they are exporting their snacks and also exporting their agriculture downstream products to ASEAN countries. I remember my friend when I was meeting him in Malaysia. I don't know, this poppy is wheat, right? No, I mean like this poppy cake, and then like he explained everything. Oh my God! So they are not only exporting like raw poppy, but also turning it into a cake. So which means I think this is also applicable in maritime sectors, not only in agriculture or land-based products. For instance, fisheries, marine aquaculture, deep sea exploration, sustainable deep sea mining, and downstream of ocean carbon capture storage can be utilized by both ASEAN and India. I might be biased when I'm talking about this because I'm working for the Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Investment. But when I study that deeper, it makes sense to how we can promote equality and also this poverty through our value-adding products. And also, this is why also on maritime issues, because of the India's large territorial waters that is also adjacent to ASEAN territorial waters, Myanmar, Thailand, yeah, Malaysia, Indonesia, Malacca Strait, yeah, directly about, adjacent to the Andaman region. Therefore, we need to also respect international regimes such as the biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction or BBNJ treaty. And it should be the basis of ASEAN India expanded maritime cooperation. Again, expanded maritime cooperation. So we also collaborate and cooperate together in maritime high seas, maritime waters beyond our national jurisdiction. And I would like to also emphasize infrastructure, climate smart technology in managing extreme events. I reckon India's heat wave this year and last year, I think then when it comes to this, the role of youth is how youth can promote its meaningful engagement in science policy interface of climate action. So we have a more sustainable, we have a better sustainable development policies that bridge the gap between science and policy. The problem is oftentimes science and policy is disconnected. So yeah, I think those are my answers to your question. And thankfully, I would like to also respond a bit maybe to what Nandita, Suba, and also I forgot the, yeah, what Osvaldo also mentioned previously, to the point where I think ASEAN in India needs to also find our third person. I mean, third person in romance is bad. It means you're cheating, but I think we need a third party in order to make sure that we get close to get better and then advance better. Of course, China is sensitive. I mean, certainly not China, but I'm talking about another industrial powerhouse, like in Africa. That is why, actually, it brought to my point where in Africa, for instance, I apologize taking it longer because this is my last speech of the day. In Africa, previous speeches and also earlier keynote session mentioned Africa as one of the emerging partner that where ASEAN and India can cooperate on. You know, Indonesia is currently promoting the Asia-Africa spirit that brings Bandung Conference spirit alive. And my current observation in Indonesia currently, within our government, the Indonesian Foreign Ministry is now working on several Asia-Africa agenda. Indonesia-Africa Forum is on September in Bali, along with the Multi-Stakeholder Partnership Forum. So I think in this regard, from this Indonesia's foreign policy to Africa, where Indonesia promotes so many outbound investment, where Indonesia sent its state-owned enterprises to Africa to invest, like Pertamina building oil projects in Africa. From this lesson, we can have one key takeaway that the main method of Indonesia diplomacy is promoting solidarity and prosperity among global South countries. That that is done through economic diplomacy tool. So maybe Africa can be another third party to advance ASEAN-India partnership, where we jointly collaborated to promote our influence and geopolitical interests in Africa. And of course, considering also the geo-economic and also the strategic importance of Africa, as mentioned by the I forgot, I believe it's Felix Patrick, that it's no longer the sorry, not Felix Patrick and also Mr. Noto, and also Mr. Bernardino Vega. It's not only the Asian century anymore; it's also the African century in the next 50 years. I recall, but I forgot who specifically said it. So yeah, I think that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Hino, sorry. With that, we come to the end of the conference and the second session. I would like to conclude by saying that this session saw many insights from the opportunities in shifting of the global supply chain, intensifying our efforts for energy and food security, and also protectionism amidst the global trade. Lastly, we had a very fruitful discussion, and I would like to hand over the stage to Anirban to conclude the conference.
So hearing from all of you, it showed like the dialogue between India and ASEAN youth has a future. In fact, when we talked about several key issues related to geopolitical, economic concerns related to value chains, and even redefining the entire definition of the global South itself. This particular conversation also brought about the importance of creating a joint working group, especially not only at a country level, but also at the sphere of a regional level and a local level as well. The conference also took into considerations the importance of sustainable economic development as well, also for boosting economic and trade partnerships. So I'd like to thank the every delegates where we have managed to engage around 10 delegates from across the ASEAN India for participating in this conference, and especially to further enhance the second India ASEAN Youth Conference of 2024, where we actually tried to explore the dialogues and discourse around the India and ASEAN youth. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Anirban. Thank you, Soumya, for hosting the session. And it has really been amazing. And thank you, everyone, for joining us, to all the ASEAN delegates and to all the Indian delegates also. And again, thank you so much, Noto, for making this possible from your side, and the Foreign Policy Talks team. Thank you so much, everyone. So we look forward to be connected on the group on which we are. I request everyone to drop down their LinkedIn profile links if they want to be in connection, And also we propose that we can keep the conversation going on. If any ASEAN delegate and Indian delegate wants to collaborate into writing a research piece or something, Geostrata can provide a platform along with Foreign Policy Talks in order to keep the conversation driving, because that is the most important part of it. And the conclusion here is that we need to be together and we need to solve issues together. That is the biggest takeaway from today's conference. And apart from that, let's stay connected. Let's be in touch with each other, and hope to meet all of you someday physically in one of ASEAN countries or here in India itself. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I think that says a good note to this conference.